Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I'm Billy Embody. With me is Shea Dixon, as always. Shea, this is the final push to the early signing period for LSU, and the Tigers are busy with the transfer portal, busy trying to button up this 2024 recruiting class and finalize kind of those final targets that they're going to push for. Our whole setup at the Bengal Tiger has been focused on that for the most part. Now that bowl practices are here, we'll start picking it up on the football side of things. But recruiting is heavy, and this weekend is that final official visit weekend before the early signing period. And LSU has seen that visitor list kind of shuffle up. There's been some rumors of different targets hitting campus. We knew there were going to be a bunch of commits coming in. But now that list for this weekend seems to be finalized on the high school side of things. You just dropped it on the Bengal Tiger right before we recorded this pod. Give the latest on who is headed to Baton Rouge this weekend.
Yeah, this was a group effort because you came this morning, Billy, on the Bengal Tiger with the rundown of the 6 commitments, the final group of guys of the 27-man commitment list who are coming in to make official visits before they sign next week. That list includes guys like Trey'Dez Green, who #1 tight end in America, has been committed to LSU for a long time now. But also guys like Kalaj Cobbins out of Destrehan, Juwan Johnson out of LCA, some local safeties, Ahmad Bro from Ruston. A lot of guys, most of these guys, Billy, were playing deep into the season with their high school teams. So now that playoffs are complete, they are able to make these visits. And from everything we've gathered, and I'll write a little bit more about this on the site this weekend, but LSU has made contact with, and we have as well. We've talked to pretty much every commitment or seen them share a post to social media. In the case of Ori Williams, who, when we get into our post-signing day stories, he'll be a fun one to talk about how when you text him, you can go months without hearing from him, and then boom, what's up, man? Hey, how things been? But Ori Williams did put out LSU's offensive lineman. He's signing Wednesday morning. So my point is, all 27 commitments right now are expected to sign on Wednesday. None are expected to hold over until February signing day. And Billy, we said from the start, the goal was 25 to 30 high school or JUCO signees. Being at 27, having some guys left on the board, and we'll talk about them in a bit, but knowing you're going to sign all 27 now, that's the recipe. It doesn't appear they're in for any final drama.
Yeah, not at all, which is good. That's where you want to be. That's kind of when they came up with the early signing period was the hope for the most part that college coaches would be able to know who they were having in the boat officially by the time that early signing period ended. And with the transfer portal, that's even more important because the transfer portal window does last until I think the first couple days of January for guys to enter. So with that being the case, you could see guys then get recruited in the spring if they are still at their current school and trying to figure out their next step and all of those things. So it's important to know who you have coming into your program from the high school side of things or just signing in general versus trying to play guessing games. So that's the good thing with the early signing period. And LSU.
You also set me up there to give you the new news, and I just skipped it and just read y'all a bunch of commitments. The new news is that one name has been added, but one name removed. So Nitarian Tuggle, who's a wide receiver, top 100 prospect. We have not heard his name mentioned much at all. He's been committed to Georgia since April. He is a top 100 prospect nationally, top 20 wide receiver coming out of South Bend, Indiana. There was buzz he was going to visit this weekend. We're told that visit is no longer on. We'll talk more about receiver here in a bit, Billy, but we get the sense with the 3 high school receivers they have committed, coupled with the portal, and then the guys they know they have coming back on roster, that there's a direction they're going. They're not going to try to flip a guy like Tuggle here late when they don't think it's much more than a visit for him at this stage. So they have shifted, and the new name is Cohen Eccles, who is a 4-star offensive lineman out of Katy, I believe, but had been committed to Texas A&M since June, ended up reopening his process. And Billy, when he committed, Auburn, LSU, Texas Tech, a number of others were involved. But since then, Auburn has taken the On3 RPM lead. He was at the Iron Bowl, said he had a great visit, loved it. LSU bringing him to campus this weekend isn't surprising. He reached out, said, "Hey, look, I'd like to make a visit before I decide." Brad Davis and the staff have recruited him for a long time. So you're not telling the kid no at the very end when you've got visits left. But at the same time, I do want to say this does not speak to LSU and what they think of their O-line class. Brad Davis and the staff love the 5-man haul they have. So I almost feel like it's a numbers game here. And if Eccles does really show interest, do they press, or is this one where they move forward with just 5 guys?
Well,
And
and
I
the
say just 5 guys as if that's not a lot. That's a good amount of O-line signees.
Yeah, and quality there too. Some of the best offensive linemen in the country, Brad Davis has on board for this class, and Cohen Eccles is interesting. LSU it kind of offered. I can look it up, while we're talking about him, but offered like right after the spring or during the spring evaluation period. I can go look on Twitter and find it, but they, really just kind of offered not late in the sense. I mean, they had a good grip on their offensive line class. So it's not like they were, too late or whatever. They just decided to offer after seeing him. And then he ended up committing to A&M, but he made a quick visit to LSU right at the end of May, right after he got his offer, and then ended up going with the Aggies. But meanwhile, LSU assembled this really nice offensive line class and, still had Weston Davis, who were at the time they were working to flip and all those things. So, the interest has been there. He's familiar with LSU. I'm with you. I'm intrigued to see how this goes. I agree. I think it's a numbers game. It does just speak to his overall interest in LSU that he is going to spend the final weekend before the early signing period in Baton Rouge, and a really nice young man out of Katy, one of the top programs in the state of Texas, and has done a nice job of keeping us up to date and things like that with his recruitment. So again, I'm intrigued to see where this goes and if they really turn up the heat and really press for him.
I like what I mean. Look, we're looking at 3 straight years of elite recruiting classes from Brad Davis, and we don't even know they could return all 5 starters. Charles Turner has not said anything about his future, and then Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier, your 2 starters at guard, have not said anything about what their intentions are, whether it be going pro or coming back. And you still have Zalance Hurd, a 5-star you can get in. You've played DJ Chester; he's the future at center now. You're bringing in another great O-line haul headlined by a 5-star in Weston Davis, who they flipped from Texas A&M, and then toss in all the other guys who are part of that mix. So it's a good spot to be in. This is where you wanted to be when you knew you hired Brian Kelly. You had Brad Davis. You wanted to look up a couple years later and say, O-line is one of the strengths of the team.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, when Brad Davis got here, it was kind of it's a lot of missed evals and things like that, and now this group is obviously turned into one of the best in the country. They're up for the Joe Moore Award, and certainly could win it. This offseason whenever that's dished out. But they continue to recruit at such a high level, and with the offensive line, it's so important to have depth, so important to have talented depth behind those starters and guys that can give you a breather or things like that here and there that you trust, which helps develop those guys when they get those live game reps. So I'm all for this if they end up seeing him and talking things over and deciding that they can fit guys in. As the bowl practices go on, I would imagine they get a better feel for some of these guys, and if they do, have decisions that are getting closer to going one way or the other on the offensive line. But yeah, good move to bring in Cohen Eccles. I'm not too surprised like you that Nitro isn't coming in. All name team for sure, but he was somebody that was linked to Michigan a lot this fall, never ended up visiting there. And it just seemed like, maybe there were opportunities to take visits and some coaching staffs just realized that, you know, they were just going to be visits and he was going to sign with the Dogs. So um, that is kind of it on the guys that shuffled up on the visit weekend. We'll see if there's any transfers that roll into town. We'll talk about transfers for sure later on in the pod, but um, I think this is going to be a pretty quiet early signing period, which is good for LSU.
It's perfect, right? I mean, this is exactly what you want. You don't want to have any major shakeup. You don't want your commitments visiting other schools this weekend and all of a sudden you're sweating it they are on a good run here of we knew the class they had put together, but closing with Gabriel Relaford, getting a top-notch D lineman on board, a top 10 D lineman nationally on three, I thought was huge. So yes, the fact that there isn't any major shakeup that we're waiting on, or guys that we don't know which way they're leaning, or hey, there's 4 uncommitted guys that could make or break the class. They're not in that position, which is points to, putting together a very good plan and then executing it.
Yeah, and speaking of executing, Shay, you've got to have your plan together for the ReliaQuest Bowl for LSU Wisconsin on New Year's Day in my own home backyard in Tampa. It's a stadium that I know very, very well. I used to work for the Bucks in high school and know that stadium like the back of my hand. I can tell you, try to get somehow find some shade in that stadium. It's pretty brutal, but that's why you have Game Time. And that's because they can preview your seats wherever you want to grab them in Raymond James Stadium. You can look at their flash deals. You can look at all the tickets in the club level right here. Pretty good seats there on the right side of things, opposite of really where you want to be for the shade. But still, club level, pretty solid there for $177. But you can also look at the flash deal. You click on it, you check it out, snag a flash deal, $53. $10 off for those corner seats right there, which is a good view as well. We love Game Time, and that's because it's so easy. When you download the Game Time app, it takes just 2 clicks to line up those tickets. You see it on there. This is on desktop, gametime.co, but when you're on your phone, you can use Apple Pay. You can use all the different ways that they have available to you to pay in just 2 clicks. And that's what we love about Game Time is how quickly you can get those last minute tickets. And of course, they have the Game Time guarantee as well.
You've blown me away. So for the people who are watching on YouTube, everybody else who's streaming this on Spotify or Apple or whatever is not getting to enjoy this. Billy doesn't often do the Game Time ad read, and when Maddie B and I do it each week during the preview and predictions for the football games, obviously football season's over now, so we've shifted the ad read into this recruiting podcast. I've been holding up my phone trying to show the seat views, but the ongoing joke is that as I turn my phone, like it just like turns you around and now you can't see the field anymore. So Billy has now got like the entire screen view of like your tickets, where you can go, seat views. You've upped Matty B in a big way here. He's gonna be embarrassed when he sees this is how you've set up the YouTube platform.
The only thing that's embarrassing is if you don't use Game Time to get your
There you
last minute
go.
tickets. And that's why we have the promo code Tigers, Tigers, for $20 off your first purchase. It'll take the guesswork out of buying those tickets. Plus, that Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So, terms apply, but download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Again, that's Tigers for $20 off your first purchase. I mean, we could do a whole pod on recommendations as well for Tampa for those folks who are going to be down there. I'm going to make a post on the Bengal Tiger. Don't
Yeah, we'll
worry.
have more pods before then, so you can come on the team podcast with us, and you just give us nonstop Tampa Rex.
Yep, we can just roll it out there. I'll try to get us some codes or maybe some happy hours in Tampa that people can do. Look, I don't know what the Lightning schedule is, but that's always fun around that time to catch a game. Let me see. Oh yeah, a little New Year's Eve game, December 31st, December 30th. Rangers are in town. Canadians. People have some things they can do in Tampa for this one. So
I think the Saints and the Bucks play the day before.
oh boy.
Game Time.
Yeah, Game Time for sure on that. All your ticket needs quickly taken care of. So check out Game Time. They got their money's worth on that one. Let's move on though. Shay, one of the guys that has been on LSU's radar for quite some time, coming off a state championship game appearance over the weekend or last weekend, and now is hosting coaches for in-home visits, is Dominick McKinley, committed to Texas A&M. He's been that way since the beginning of his senior season, but You had a great interview with Angie McKinley. Really, just a great mom to those two boys, Dominic and Darius. And they're trying to navigate Dominic's future right now, but they hosted Frank Wilson and Brian Kelly. Syracuse was in home as well this week. Texas A&M's going in home. This is now looking like, and I mean, we're not sitting here saying it's going to be LSU or anything like that, but you feel like the energy has maybe shifted a little bit to more of a real chance that LSU can pull this one out somehow.
I wish I could steal and go look up, Billy, on the board. Someone had a very eloquent quote about it, but I think that I would go with, if I'm an LSU fan, I'm taking this with, if we get him, great. If not, I didn't expect it. And we did not see him take an official visit to LSU in June when he took all of his other official visits. He made a commitment to A&M in September 1st, right as his senior season began. And even then, the buzz was that Texas, there were other teams, Oklahoma, that had maybe trended ahead of LSU. Then he never came to a game this year. Now, he's made visits to LSU, but you put all those things together, Billy, and there's not a lot of room for me to see optimism or to preach optimism to you. Now, after talking to Angie McKinley, Dominic, and then Darius, his younger brother, who has college offers as well. He's a sophomore at Acadiana, defensive lineman. She said that Brian Kelly and Frank Wilson came in, and that essentially her and Frank spent the evening together talking about life after football, academics, how they're going to take care of him, all of these things that a mother would want to know. And that Brian Kelly had the two boys, Dominic and Darius, on the other side of the room, just kind of cutting up, talking football, talking about Acadiana, talking about college. And she described it as really the most laid back she'd seen Dominic around the staff. And Dominic, she described him as a very reserved, even keeled, doesn't get too high or low, doesn't say a whole lot, and that Darius is the super outgoing one. But she said that Dominic opened up a lot and seemed to have a lot of fun hanging out with Coach Kelly. But the big news here is this. She confirmed with me he will not sign anywhere next week. So despite being committed to A&M, he's going to wait until February's National Signing Day to make his announcement. And that means that the door does remain open for LSU and others, Billy, to get in here. And the reason he's waiting, she said, is they want to see what the staff at A&M looks like when it's all settled, and with the staff at, LSU, Oklahoma, other schools, Texas, that are in the mix, what they look like at those places, then make the decision from there.
I mean, that all makes a ton of sense. And, for a kid who, I mean, when we talked about him this summer, guys, I mean, he doesn't really love the recruiting process. And he probably just isn't really feeling it or whatever. But now that they've had the coaching changes, he has to really reassess things once again, kind of in a vacuum. Like, he took those visits this summer, and then, yeah, he ended up waiting all the way to his first game of his senior year. But that decision was kind of made leaving the summer visits. And so now he's got to reset because there's been so much change in College Station. And so they will get a chance if they get into a good enough spot where they can host him again with a head coaching change. But there's multiple schools that are working those angles, including LSU. And now you just hope you can get him back on campus once again and see how the chips fall. And he's somebody that if LSU lands, I mean, you have a guy who's 6'5", 275 pounds, wears it well, played all over the line at Acadiana, and had a good senior year. He didn't have Relaford's senior year, but he had a good senior year. And it's not coming from us trying to change the narrative. As people who don't have access to every single snap, we talked to our rankings team and we were saying, hey, here's kind of what the buzz on the ground is in Louisiana. Should Relaford be a little higher? Well, they're saying, yeah, maybe we could see that. But also, it's not like Dominick McKinley had a bad senior year. They went back and watched his senior year start to finish and came back saying, look, guys, this is still one of the best defensive linemen in the country.
No, and this is what development is. This is what coaching is. And I said it on the board. People who are wondering if he's a 5-star or not, and that have seen him play games, I just would say from a college perspective, especially in LSU shoes with the Louisiana defensive lineman, Billy, you'd rather figure out if he's a hit or if he's a miss. And this is not just Dominic, anyone that's of this rating and obviously has these offers, you'd rather find that out on your campus than he goes elsewhere and maybe he's doesn't pan out, or maybe he becomes a really reliable player, multi-year starter, and he's doing it at A&M or Texas or a school that you're playing every year. So that's kind of my take on it. If LSU still feels like he's a take, which they absolutely do, yes, you want him.
Yeah, and that goes for a lot of guys at different positions. A Dontavian Wicks, like, wouldn't LSU be sitting there, wanting a guy like that? Oh, I'd like to take a risk on a guy like that versus, trying to find someone else out there who is just in a different realm. It's you want to take those risks on guys from Louisiana, and they seem to pan out here and there, and it would be a good situation for Dom to be an hour from his folks, and that they can see Darius play on Friday and then go turn around and see Dom on Saturday. And we'll see what happens with the future of the defensive line coach and all of those things. But the good news is they have time to work that out.
That's a sneaky good point too, of that Darius has 2 years of high school left. So if he goes to LSU, she can watch her son play on Friday night and then drive 40 minutes and see her older son play on Saturday. Obviously, the trek becomes a little bit more difficult or longer if he's out of state. So good point there. I totally agree.
Another guy who's waiting till February is Terry Bussey, a 5-star in his own right, who just won a state championship Wednesday night. Yeah, talk about having a short week to prepare for a state championship, but that's what Timpson had, and they were able to win it, and he goes out a winner. One of the most electric guys in Texas high school football and in the country. He's up for the Mr. Texas Football Award, just like LSU commit Xavier Atkins is. But Terry Bussey now supposedly going to wait until February, and he could take some visits as well. And one of those could very well be to LSU.
Yeah, Bussey's a guy that can play on either side of the ball, really. It doesn't matter. He's a phenomenal athlete. They like him at defensive back because that's a area they really need help at. But the reality is that he could get on campus and bounce around to wherever you need him. Great kid. We've known for a bit he was going to wait till February because he was going through that uncertainty of Jimbo being fired, the A&M staff being shuffled around and shifting. And boy, Billy, we've outside of the LSU commits I've run down, we are on a 20-something minute into a podcast, and we've talked about nothing but A&M commits. So it's kind of open season over there in College Station as a lot of their guys sort of say, hey, I'm pressing pause during this coaching change. I'm not signing right now. And yes, Bussey makes 2 5-stars in addition to McKinley, who remain committed to A&M. Like they flipped Gabe Relaford to LSU. They flipped Weston Davis to LSU. Cohen Eccles decommitted. These two, Bussey and McKinley, have remained committed, but they're saying we're just not signing in December.
Exactly. And so those guys will have some time to review things. I am going to show you guys a little clip here if I can get it rolling. And this is Bussey. Sam Spiegelman was at AT&T a Wednesday night. This is him going for a 92-yard touchdown run, a 2A state record. A little slow-mo there, but just kind of gives you guys a feel for just how electric he is. And I got to see him about 2 weeks ago when they won one of their playoff games, and he did it all. And he played a little bit on the back end in the secondary as well for Timpson. But I mean, this is fun because these are guys in the region that are all close by. Timpson isn't that far from Baton Rouge. It's not something where they're on a guy who's committed to Georgia and he's got to fly every time he wants to get to Baton Rouge, and we're trying to track that down. This is somebody who is within driving distance, and if they want to pop back into Baton Rouge and see it, they'll be able to do that. So it's going to be a fun finish for this class potentially, and at least tracking it. I mean, tracking guys like Terry Bussey, Dominick McKinley, it's a lot more fun when it's a high stakes game for LSU versus maybe kind of a filler piece late.
Nope, I'm with you. No drama right now, and then let's buckle in for February.
Yeah, I'm with it. Now it's time for you to take on the reins of one of our most consistent favorite podcast sponsors. Let them hear from My Perfect Franchise and Andy Ludicky.
I didn't know you were tossing me the ad read. I could probably do it by heart, but let me make sure that I don't miss anything. Andy's been rocking with us, God, for about coming up on a year now, Billy. We met Andy, talked to him, and he said, "Look, I want to let everybody know with his business, My Perfect Franchise, that you can, no matter the amount of money you have, no matter the situation you're in, if becoming a franchisee or getting involved in franchises is something you want to do, he's there for it, and his services are completely free. To give him a call, to reach out, to talk about it, and for him to help you set up what could potentially be your next step in business." And he talks about it as leaving people want to leave the rat race, that for the American dream, whether that's creating your own business or joining one. It could be a side hustle. He talks about all the time people going in together on businesses. But as a franchise consultant, he's done this for decades. He is a franchise owner and has helped people all over the country, not just Louisiana, but the Southeast and abroad from there, beyond from there, with his services. Again, 100% free to call them. It's 404-973-9901. That's 404-973-9901. Or email him, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. That's Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. Or just go check out the website. You can easily Google it and get there. Shoot him an email. Tell him, hey, I heard it on the Bengal Tiger podcast. Wanted to at least feel out kind of what you do, what people are interested in these days, what routes people are taking when it comes to getting involved in a franchise. So take that step if it's something that's been on your mind. You've got some downtime around the holidays. You're thinking about kind of, hey, what else can I get in the mix with this next stage of my life? That's what Andy's here for. So shout out to Andy. He's already helped out a lot of people and hopefully many more.
Yeah, good friend of the program there. And speaking of a good friend of the program, and we probably need to have him on with everything that's going on. Sam Spiegelman was in the Dome last weekend for the state championships in Louisiana. One of the best weekends of the year for the site and for Louisiana. Just a celebration of all things Louisiana in the Dome. And he dropped his top performer list on the state championship weekend. From being in the Dome, seeing every game, and things like that. And it was dotted with LSU commits, LSU targets that were able to make impacts on their way to state championships, or just playing in the state championship game and standing out. And no surprise, one of them, Trades Green, the 5-star, or I guess should be a 5-star. He's so close to being a 5-star. He can almost taste it. But Trades Green was one that stood out in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 6'6.5", 245-pound basketball player turned football tight end. You flex him out. He plays receiver really at Zachary, but he's gone viral a number of times already this year with catches, did it again in the Dome. You pair him with Kamorian Pimpton, and boy, you've got 6'6", 245-pound athletes who have amazing catch radius, can really stretch the field for you, are great athletes. But in terms of Green, I think he could be an instant impact guy that they bring in different sets and looks next year, because you don't have Brian Thomas probably and Malik to where you can rely on those two nonstop in the passing game. You'll go back to Mason Taylor. You'll try out Pimpton. You'll throw Green out there. So as LSU's, I believe, he's still the highest ranked commitment they have, unless Weston Davis. I can't. Maybe Weston Davis is on 3, but regardless, as one of the top signees in this class, number one tight end in America. No surprise he made the list, and that this list was, as you said, dotted with LSU commitments from Juwan Johnson, who LCA and STM ran into each other again in the Dome this year. He went wild. Juwan had 457 yards, had a few touchdowns. I mean, he broke Brock Berlin's all-time LHSAA total career yards record. Then he broke the touchdown record. So a hats off and a hat tip to Juwan Johnson for everything he was able to do this season.
Yeah, it was a fun season of Louisiana high school football. A lot of guys that made waves and stood out in their own right. And I think Trades is a guy that I would love to see finish as a 5-star. And even if he's last one in on our end, I just think he's got that upside. He's got that ability to be that type of a player at LSU. And just the way he's competed this year really stood out to me. I almost think he, kind of took a little bit of some of the doubters out there and was able to turn it around and, um, just be able to, um, you know, I don't know, shut people up a little bit. And I think the same with James Simon. I think James Simon had an unbelievable season, and his finish to his state championship season was awesome as well. He was named most outstanding player and joined his dad on that list of guys who have had that type of a performance in a state championship game. And I'm really, really high on James Simon. I really do think there's a chance that he can find a way to battle it away with Harlan Berry for one of the top spots in the country at running back.
Yeah, I mean, he's already top 10 on3. It'd be nice to see if he could climb even higher into the top 5 or 6 because boy, is he talented. He had an amazing year for them this season. So it was awesome to be able to see him cap that off in the Dome. And he got the On3 MVP nod as an underclassman from Sam, which is cool to see. Daniel Beal, who's headed to UL as a quarterback, got Catholic a state title. Josh Brantley up at Ruston, they got a state title after falling short a year ago to Destrehan. Don McKinley was on the list. Blaine Bradford, obviously Catholic. Kavion Broussard, who's headed to Miami's. So a nice showing from all these guys at the Dome, and a lot of kids who are playing high-level D1 football next year.
Yep, great group there in the Dome. Shea, with football season winding down, it's going to be time to relax just a little bit. And one of the best ways to do that is with our friends at Rogue Shop, the Bengal Tigers' official home for legal CBD, THC, and more. You can get 10% off your order at rogueshop.com with promo code Bengal Tiger. So check them out. Richard and Shar, husband and wife, veteran-owned business that is just grinding away, answering your questions on their site with their live chat, whether it's the tinctures, the pain cream, the pet meds, all of those things to help you just relieve anxiety, stress, sleep better. It's so important. I mean, this is that kind of stressful time of year where your mind's racing with the holidays, your mind's racing for us, at least with work as well, with the transfer portal and recruiting. What's important? A good night's sleep.
They've got a lot of Christmas deals running right now as well. You can get the Bengal Tiger promo code and get your percentage off there, but also Shar and them have a lot set up over there Christmas-wise that you can check out with deals on different things, Christmas-related things. They've even got an advent calendar. But I'll remind you, my go-to are the Delta 9 THC gummies, the 45 milligrams. You can get on there. You'll see them. Great for me with the sleep. I also like the Delta 8s, which you can get in 50 milligrams, 125 milligrams. All you have to do is get on there. Shar will pop up. You can talk to her, give her some info, and she'll recommend what's best. But I'm loaded up. I'm ready to roll for the holiday season, Billy. I'm good.
Love it. Appreciate Rogue Shop. You'll continue to hear more about Rogue Shop from us as the days go on with their great partnership for us. So check them out, rogueshop.com. Shea, let's finish up with this. And I say finish up, but we could probably go on for another 30 minutes talking about the transfer portal and kind of where LSU's at. Before we get into specific players, let's go quickly. Kind of what are your needs for LSU, and who are some of those players that we can get into in terms of the targets right now?
I mean, I think that when you think of when you're taking fewer than 10 transfers, which is their goal, you're no longer trying to just get a bunch of guys and build depth. You want guys who can come in and compete to play and really help you out. I think it starts for me at positions like defensive back, where I think both safety and corner are positions that you would like a boost from. I look at wide receiver and knowing that you've lost 2,000-yard receivers, the guy who leads the nation in receiving yards, the guy who leads the nation in receiving touchdowns. I'm presuming both these guys do go pro. Neither Malik Neighbors nor Brian Thomas have said anything publicly yet, but presuming they're going pro, and you return Kyron Lacey, you've got Hilton, you've got Anderson, you've got Ibieta, who's been injured, and then you've got a bunch of freshmen who have not played. So I would then look at wide receiver as being an important piece, because we've seen even a year ago with guys from Louisiana, Billy. Trey Harris went from La Tech to Ole Miss. He had a huge game against LSU, including the winning touchdown. Keon Coleman goes from Michigan State as Louisiana native to Florida State. Week 1, he puts up 3 touchdowns on LSU. LSU loses by 3 touchdowns in that game. So a portal receiver can make a big difference. I know people say 2 more positions would probably come to the forefront of their mind. D-line, and I'd say my answer to that right now is that let's see what Mason Smith, Mekhi Wingo, these guys do who could go pro or could return, because if they're returning, a lot of high-level D linemen are not going to come here and say, well, I want to start. Those are your starters. So you'd be recruiting really depth pieces there in the portal. I want to see what those 2 guys do. And then quarterback. And Joe Sloan has been active. It's been reported that he's been around. He's been checking in on quarterbacks, but we're seeing quarterbacks dominoes fall, Billy. And it's for guys who are saying, I'm leaving this school and I'm going somewhere else where I'm going to start. And LSU is not offering that up. That's not out there, because you've got to come in and battle with Garrett Nussmeier. And that makes it a very particular type of player that they could go out there and find, which is a guy who is willing to say, I'm leaving my school. I don't mind being in a competition. I'll stick it out if I am the backup. And it also doesn't ruffle any feathers with Ricky Collins, who's on roster, or a target like Bryce Underwood, who announces in January. So it's a fine line to walk. But I think the thing I've taken away after the first 10 days is, from talking to sources, the quarterbacks who aren't being promised not just NIL stuff, but I'm coming in and starting, or at least getting the majority of the reps as a demand, they're not going to look at LSU, because LSU is just not going to promise that out. Nor do I think they should.
Yeah, I agree. And I that's the tough part with quarterback recruiting. You can't just, it's, the room at LSU is as healthy as it's been in a long, long time, over the last couple years, obviously, because of how upfront they are, how they handle things. And yeah, Walker Howard left. I mean, I don't think Walker Howard was ever going to start a game at LSU, quite frankly. Um, and that's more of a, you know, sign of what they have in Garrett Nussmeier, and how they're, going to trust him with the offense. They're going to bring somebody in if they can, but they have that trust in him. And, they love Ricky Collins. They like Colin Hurley, who's coming in as a January enrollee, and they're right in the mix for Bryce Underwood. And so it's a very precarious time. And so Joe Sloan has done a really nice job of navigating this, and not, you know, pushing his chips in on somebody who just wants to be promised something, and then word gets around, and then boom, Garrett Nussmeier's in the portal because quarterback dads hear about it, and all of those things that can happen and do happen out there in that crazy world of the quarterbacks. But for me, I'm with you on the DB room. I think if they can find another defensive lineman for the interior, just depending on Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith's final decision, just to add another depth piece, that would be nice. I love where the linebacker room is heading, with the guys they're bringing in the 2024 class. Safety position, kind of the same story, but I know they want to address it. But I think I like the move of Jordan Gilbert, Jair Brown, if they can find a way to bring into Cameron Richardson to continue to kind of let those guys develop and let the young freshmen develop, you could be rolling 3 or 4 different corners out there. And then the guys can kind of play at a higher clip. The days of the starting 11 is your starting 11 are over. I'd much rather have 3, 4 guys that you can roll. That goes for corner, that goes for safety, that goes for defensive line, all those things on a defense. That's why I like the linebacker room a little bit more than any other position on the roster right now. It just seems like next year they'll be able to take a little bit of a step up as some guys mature. And that's why we haven't really seen them linked to a linebacker at this point too. But the secondary, bringing in competition that's quality, is really important, because you have some young guys that have shown some promise, but you also need to upgrade that position because last year just wasn't acceptable.
And linebacker, did you not see that Whit Weeks he went from sunshine long hair to the
All American.
corner?
He's an All American. He's an All American, Shay. Get it right.
This is 100 plus tackle season incoming. You've got Greg Penn, you've got Harold Perkins back, you've got West Weeks back. We'll see how Braithwaite comes along, and I really like the linebacker class they've got. So, again, if I'm picking who's up next, Billy, it's Xavier Thomas out of State or Jordan Gilbert, probably out of Texas A&M. I think one of those two guys pops, if not both, very in sooner than later. And I know these things can kind of drag out as everything gets ironed out with a transfer in the NIL era and everything else. But I feel very good about those two guys ending up at LSU at this stage. And I think both fill big needs for them, most notably Xavier in the return game, a proven punt and kick returner who you're not just like he's done it in high school. No, he's done it at State in the SEC, has touchdowns on kickoffs, has touchdowns on punt returns, doesn't have a drop history. And look, put up more than 500 yards receiving for a bad State offense. So can get in the mix there. I like those two guys early on.
Yep, I do too. And I think with Xavier being in that, like you said, bad State offense, it's all about finding good projections too. And that's where, I mean, unfortunately for LSU, 2022 went unbelievably well at corner. 2023 didn't go as well as they would have hoped. With a guy like Xavier Thomas, you could theoretically project, okay, we have a veteran quarterback in a sense in Garrett Nussmeier coming in. We just had the number one offense in the country. Could very well have Kyron Lacey back. We've got some young receivers, but this guy did way more with less in that Mississippi State offense. You put him in LSU's, they should be able to scheme up some things for him that can really showcase him. And that's why out of the guys that are on the list right now, I like Xavier the best. We'll see. Obviously, Will Shepherd is a spring guy out of Vanderbilt and a Mandeville native. You know, he's somebody that would address a big need on the outside receiver spot. DeCamerion Richardson would be a great one-year plug for LSU. The competition is stiff for a guy who was preseason looked at as a pro, top 3 round type of potential.
And he could still enter the NFL draft. I mean,
totally.
He could put it. He's in the portal now from State after being there 4 years. He's got 170 plus tackles, 20 plus starts. He could feel out all these colleges and then say, I'm going to go pro. Like, I don't know with a guy like that. It's so interesting. There's different levels of this. Like, I think Will Shepherd coming out of Indy obviously wants another year of college. I think a guy like Richardson could say, I could do it either way.
Yep. 100%. And it's all a balance for LSU. You don't want to, I don't know. It's a wild calendar for college football. I think we've all figured that out. And once again, something needs to be figured out. I like that the window is shortened up just a little bit, but it's still just the wild, wild west. I mean, I would almost say the window needs to go to 10 days and it ends right after the conference championship games, and you can enter. Then I don't know. I don't know. We can get into another podcast on that, but the whole 30 days is still too long, and that just leaves other options for, if you bring in a guy to address a position, then that another guy on that position group could say, I'm not feeling that, I'm in. So, I mean, I'm not trying to like pigeonhole players into staying at their schools when their situation changes, but if you don't like your situation, you should know that you don't like your situation, and you can decide in a relative amount of time to change that situation, if that makes sense. I don't know.
That's for a whole nother pod.
But I like the guys they're on. We'll see kind of what else the transfer portal gives. There is still, like I said, a couple more weeks of time where guys could enter, and then another window in the spring. But the goal for LSU here would be to have these guys in the spring and get them acclimated. And but one last thing, spots are tight, Shea. This isn't just, hey, let's blow up this roster or retool this roster because there's 30 scholarships available. It's tighter than people think.
Well, for the first time, the only real limit you have now, you can sign as many high school kids as you want. You can take as many portal kids as you want. You have to be at or under 85 scholarship players when fall camp starts. So you have a whole offseason to shape your roster. This is just the first offseason of the Brian Kelly era where you take over a program that has 38 scholarship players. Well, the next 2 off seasons you can take, and they did, 15 plus portal guys, and you can lose 10 plus portal guys. And you're still trying to figure out, hey, how can we add and add and add? Now they've gotten to that. We were told from the start, 25 to 30 high school signees in JUCO, fewer than 10 transfers. They are very much headed for that right now. That means that they knew in year 3 it would balance out enough to where they were close to that 85. They were retaining guys, the right guys, developing them, and now all of a sudden you're not playing catch up every year.
Yeah. The whole goal of the portal is, now that LSU's gotten to this point, is to supplement. And obviously there are some positions each year that are going to take fixing um, for whatever reason over, however many years, whether it's evals don't pan out, guys leave, NFL draft entrance, whatever, injuries that you have to fix. But the goal is to supplement. And that is, as bad as the defense was last year, I think there are some positions where with what you have coming in, you still feel like, okay, you supplement, and hopefully that helps the defense kind of turn the corner. I felt like, I've said this a couple times, I feel like last year's defense was kind of a perfect storm of a ton of things not going LSU's way, whereas in year 1, a ton of things went LSU's way, and they pretty much hit on every eval as well.
And I think that's what Brian Kelly said that they have to be careful with now. When you take fewer than 10 and you're relying on them largely to start or really compete to start, you've got to be right. You can't be missing. So for people who are saying it's not moving fast enough, all these things, look, things move at the pace that they move. And in the NIL era, and when kids are looking at multiple schools and when kids are weighing all options and feeling it all out, it doesn't happen quickly, even with guys who are from Louisiana. So patience, I think, is the key here. And remember this, you have 30 days to enter the portal. That's not when you have to be committed. So guys can drag it out beyond that. We could see this easily play out, and have before the past 2 off seasons, into January, into February, and then into the spring.
Yep, exactly. I don't think the first transfer portal commit came for LSU until December 18th or 19th last year. So it'll be interesting. A lot more to come on that, which is why you should subscribe to the Bengal Tiger. We've got a special coming with National Signing Day coming up, so look for that. It should start on Thursday or Friday, I think. So be on the lookout for that big special, big opportunity for you guys to join the BengalTiger.com. Still waiting on the link to get hats up and running again, but we'll get you
Yes,
guys.
they said it's coming. They said it's
Okay.
coming.
Yep. So we're not forgetting about that. We got you guys. We got hats. The last of the Founders Club hats are there. So we will get you guys that link when we have it. But for that, with that, Shea, this is it for the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Pod on this week. We'll be back next week. We appreciate all you guys who have subscribed to the site and YouTube and Spotify and all that. You got one
And
more.
we will have a pre-signing day and post-signing day recruiting podcast for you also. Double dipping next week. So
Yep.
you'll be fully covered for signing day, which begins Wednesday. And then after signing day, it runs 3 days, but LSU will have everybody signed by Wednesday.
Yep. I think I'm going to be able to make it out to Duncanville. They might not be in school, but I think they're still going to do something. So see Caden Durham, put pen to paper, and see those guys. I'll be at AT&T Stadium this weekend, Friday and Saturday, seeing Devon Keys, DeCorian Moore, Caden Durham, Xavier Atkins. All take their shots at state championships. So it'll be a fun weekend on the Bengal Tiger. Subscribe. For Shea Dixon, I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening, guys. We will catch you guys next week with another Bengal Tiger recruiting podcast.